So we're recording this for YouTube. Let's do it. Homework help. I thought this would be a good episode to do for the YouTube and to start us off. Yesterday was the HSC in Advanced English, and we're on a new syllabus of Advanced English, and there are a lot of bad teachers out there saying bad stuff to their students. And one of the bad pieces of advice that teachers have been giving students is go and just in your creative writing section, you may get one of four different things. You could get a creative text, like a short story. You could get a persuasive text, like a standard sort of essay type thing. You could get a informative text of some kind, or you could get a imaginative text, right? A discursive text, which is discursive text is a new one. It's not something that a lot of teachers are familiar with. The way I try to express it to my students is it is just a TED Talk in written form where you're examining both sides of the issues. Now, because it's new and because a lot of new teachers feel like it's the easiest one to do, they told their students, hey, just do a discursive text for that module section. And a lot of students are upset today because they prepared a discursive text because that's what their teachers told them to do. And in doing so, probably wrecked a chunk of the HSC because the HSC came out and they had to do an imaginative text that was required of them. And so I just want to talk today, I guess, about like what to do when your exam goes wrong. You know, if your exam gets messed up, what can you, if you prepare wrong or if you get a question that you're not ready for or expecting, how can you react to that? So first of all, good luck to any HSC students that are currently doing the HSC. Secondly, I apologize to you on behalf of the Department of Education if you received crappy advice from your teacher and got screwed over by that. But yeah, like, what do you do? Have a think about it. Like, what would you do if a different question came up? I think what actually happened is pretty brutal because like a discursive text and a creative text are very, very different. It's like the difference between, getting yourself in the mindset to do like social science and instead being asked to do art. Like it's so polarly opposite. So if you've gone in there really with that discursive mindset, with all your issues ready and whatever, and you haven't thought about like the way you'd approach that, that's pretty brutal. So that's pretty rough for them. So first of all, I think, and I said this before, the first thing you can do is know what they can ask you. And that's very easy to find out because you can find all the things that the teachers use to talk about their stuff, but use it for yourself. So there are sample exams out there on the NESA website which say this is what can and can't be in the HSC, and you should be familiarizing yourself with those if you're doing the HSC. And knowing what's in the syllabus, right? Like what things they can and can't ask you. Another example is in Advanced English. They did. They asked the question of how would you talk about the aesthetics of Shakespeare for Module B, and they gave you a quote from the Shakespeare text and asked you to do, that. And so like that aesthetics isn't really in that module. And the same goes for EALD. They asked about stability for the human experiences text. So I guess my advice to you is think about, so first off, you are an expert. Well, first off, know what they can ask you and can't ask you. Second off, you're an expert. You've just done 200 hours. If you're seeing HSC, you've done 200 hours of studying your course. So you do know what you're talking about, and you should know what you're talking about, and you are immersed in this conversation very deeply. And if it's another module from previous, terms, then you need to go back and just remember what those conversations were all about, which is why taking notes in class is really important. Because you can come back to see those conversations and really immerse yourself in the concepts that you were talking about. And then when they ask you a question like stability or aesthetics, like you can think, oh, well, what is that similar to? in what we actually studied and what you remember. So for instance, aesthetics, you're talking about like what is the repeated themes, what is the, I guess, the visual imagery in the language that Shakespeare sets up, what is, what is the stylistic features, I guess, is what aesthetically is asking about. For the case of EALD with stability, like you got to think like what is stable and unstable in your text. So at our school we do past the shallows. So what what is stable in that in that text? There's not a lot that's stable. The brotherhood, I guess, is stable a little bit, and the family is very unstable. And that's kind of the point of that text. And the end of that text, without spoiling anything, is that stability is threatened in a very serious way. And in fact, you start that text with the stability of that family being destroyed, right, by the fact that the mother is dead and died in that car accident, and that has then created this whole circumstance that you're in the first place. So you got to think like, what is the question saying? What do you actually, what can you link it to that you know about? Because I guarantee if you did those texts, you would be able to do that. So going back to Shakespeare, with the aesthetic thing, that text uses a lot of discussion of things like blood. It uses that mirroring of, Hotspur and Hal, and creating those imagery, and the difference between like the ruffians that Hal's living with and the real the real Hal, the niceness of the royal court, and later Hal becomes that guy, right? Like, how is all that imagery built through the language, through the texts, through those kinds of things? So you're tying yourself back into what you already know. So let's bring that back to the original scenario. If you're asked to do something that's extremely different like that, you do have to be flexible. And this is, again, this new HSC, especially in English, is all about flexibility. And we're about to get another new version of the HSC in the next 2 years anyway, right? So, but this will still apply, because you need to be flexible. You need to be, on point with what you can and can't be asked, and you need to be ready for that. So, I guess in the case of being asked to do imaginative when you have prepared a discursive, you would have done imaginative throughout the year in your study of, even if it was just in your study of the common module, you'll have looked at that. So that is really kind of crucial to that. And so what did you learn in that imaginative writing study? If you're doing module C correctly, you should have done a lot of it. If you weren't doing it correctly because you got a teacher who's like, just do discursive, then you're in a bit of trouble. But think back to the creative writing you have done. So creative writing, you need to put in those techniques. You need to put in, and not just the creative writing you've done, but the creative writing you've analyzed as well. Like, you're looking for those techniques. Maybe you put in some metaphors. I'd say put in 3 or 4 metaphors every time you do creative writing. Try to pick a theme and stick to it. Develop that theme with a a focus for something specific that is one of your strengths. So for instance, if you're writing with some metaphors, make that an extended metaphor. Think about the theme. Let's say your theme is maybe the question's tying into some stimulus that's tying into like family or something like that. You might think about the family and how you could build a metaphor out of that, and then turn that into a theme, whatever. So this is a very specific example, and it's something that's very relevant to yesterday, but what can you do? You know what I mean? Like, if something like that happens, and it's going to happen, every section, you're going to come across at some point something that you're not prepared for. And that is part of preparing for the HSC, is being ready to be flexible. Because if you're not flexible, you're going to have a bad time. Like that's you have to do it. You can't just go in prepared with, pre-written stuff memorized anymore. It's no longer the way the HSC works. What if it's not English? What if it's something else? What if it's like maths or science and you don't feel prepared? I once did back in my day, old Grandpa Arjade did the school certificate, which was like the HSC but in year 10, right? And I did geography in that. So look at my hair. What's it doing? Lord only knows what my hair's doing. Back in my day, I did the school certificate, which is in year 10. I did geography, and this was the first big lot of exams that we did at our school. And we got the exam paper for geography, and it has like electives in it. And there was like, the 2 set questions and then 8 extra questions. But I didn't understand the format because I was a bit of a derp, and I tried to answer all 8 questions, right? Like, obviously I got 0 for the questions that we didn't do, but that's just, I tried to react to that because I was, I don't know, I was like, well, it's an exam, you got to answer the questions. So that's a big deal, when you do that, because you're trying to fit in an essay in 40 minutes. Instead of doing 1 essay, you're trying to do 8 essays, which I had to go at though. And this is the thing, is I was flexible. I tried to, even though it was things that I hadn't even studied, I was still able to write something for each question, even if it was just a paragraph, because I was like rushing to get through it all in the time. And that's very important. The time is another issue that we need to talk about. That happened this HSC too. One of the examiners put the wrong time on the board and gave him 3 hours instead of 2. And then when it came time, the correct time for the second hour to be up, and one of the other examiner was like, okay, time's up. And a lot of people complained about that. But you should know what your time is. And it will say on your paper always what the time limit is for it. But you know what the timings are. Usually it's 40 minutes a section in the HSC, and you should be knowing that. You should be looking at past papers and seeing what the time is, and the time is the same every year, right? It doesn't change, except if you go back 3 years and we change the syllabus like we just did, right? It might change then, but most of the time it's not going to be a different thing, and your teacher should be telling you this is the time limit that you'll be having. So anyone who was caught out by that 3 hour thing is really, that's their own fault, because they should know the times, and they should be working to those times, and you should always be planning your time based off the amount of work you have to do. And each section tells you how long it should be too. It'll say like, you should allow 40 minutes for this section or whatever. So you should look at the clock, do a quick bit of maths, simple maths, and work it out. So yeah, what to do in an exam summarized. First off, don't panic. Secondly, you should know it ahead of time anyway. You should be prepared a little bit. Thirdly, remember you're an expert. You've spent 200 hours of whatever course you're doing on doing this. So just go back to the stuff you've learned in class. Go back and be reliant on that stuff. And then I guess, finally do the best you can. Don't give up. Because really, that's what it is. And the final thing I'd say, and this is something I'm very adamant about with my students, look, the HSC doesn't really matter. Okay, I know this is not what the Department of Education want teachers to tell you, but in the scheme of things, it's not important. I got the crappiest ATAR you can get. How they limit it? I was back in my day it was at 40. If it was below 40, you didn't get it. I got 40.05, the lowest one you could get. And now I have a master's degree. It's not... and I've done 28 different jobs, and it's not a big deal. There's so many ways into university, especially this year. If if you were smart, you would have applied for early entry and got it. If you weren't smart, the unis need your money, man. They are running out of cash. They need the money for their tweed coats. So, you got to do that. But yeah, there you go. That's my advice for this. I don't know how many people we got watching. Hopefully it's still Mrs. Ginger Fox if she's actually there. She's probably not there because she's probably sick of me. But there we go. That's my pro tips for how to do the stuff if your exam goes a bit crazy. I'm here. Yeah. How's the lag? That was pretty quick. I said it and you pretty much wrote it straight away. Yeah, so thank you for watching this video. If you're watching it on YouTube, if you're following me on the stream, which I don't think anyone is, yeah, I'll try to do a bit of a better job next time, because this is kind of garbage. This is a hot garbage fire of me rambling. But if you have questions that you would like answered, please put them in comments on YouTube, or send them in the chat or whatever. I'm sure there's a way we can do this so that you can get me questions, and I'll do this again in the future, maybe, if anyone gives a crap. Let me know if you give a crap on YouTube. The link of which I've forgotten. Mr. Ginger Fox, do you know what my YouTube link is? Not relevant for the YouTube video because you're watching it on YouTube, so we will cut that out.